Welcome to the Sober Strength Podcast, the show that helps you optimize your relationship with alcohol and elevate fitness. I'm your host, Jesse Carrajat, United States Marine veteran, fitness coach, and mental health advocate. Thank you for showing up for yourself today. And welcome to part 2 of our 5-part series called the 30-Day Alcohol-Free Blueprint. So this course, or this series, if you will, is designed to equip anyone, whether it's for dry January, alcohol-free April, dry July, sober October, or at any time if you're DIYing your own 30-day alcohol-free journey. This course is going to give you the knowledge, tools, and motivation to be successful. So again, this is part 2, and in part 2, we're going to be covering week 2 in a 30-day alcohol-free journey. So those are days 8 through 14, respectively. And we're going to dive deep. But before we do, as always, we like to strongly recommend that if you haven't joined our Ultimate Fitness community yet, it is a free companion community where you can jump in and get some more extensive, deeper resources to educate you and motivate you in this journey. Whether you plan on jumping in and doing 30 days alcohol-free, and that's it, you go back to your life, you get the benefits from that, and maybe you revisit this in a couple months. Or if you plan on turning 30 days into 45 days, 60 days, maybe a couple months, whatever it is, jump into that community. You'll find a tribe of like-minded individuals. You'll find forums, virtual meetups, resources, not just on alcohol, but also fitness. We've got fitness programs, coaches in there. So if you want to kind of layer over your alcohol-free goals, fitness goals, we've got nutrition guidance, fitness guidance, ebooks, everything's free. So check that out. We link to it in every episode. You can also find links on any of our social channels. With that said, let's get started with part 2 of this series. Let's go deep. All right, everybody, welcome back, and welcome to part 2 of the 30-day alcohol-free blueprint, days 8 through 14. So if you missed last week, I strongly recommend you go back, listen to that episode. It's about a 25-minute episode. If you don't have time for that, just check out the show notes. We worked really hard to make sure that the key takeaways were in those show notes, as well as links to different resources that we mentioned in the episode. And we are going to do the same thing for this episode and each subsequent episode. So let's go into now what is happening in your body and mind, or should I say what might be happening, because, you know, this is all relative to the individual. So if you're someone who is relying on alcohol or using alcohol a little bit more frequently or intensely, you're going to have different kind of symptoms or reactions as you refrain from alcohol versus someone who's maybe just a little bit more casually drinking. But either way, we're trying to focus the content on aspects that are going to be applicable to everyone. And that said, the first thing that we want to talk about in the some science section here is sleep. So something that you hopefully are noticing is you should be experiencing some improvements when it comes to sleep quality and duration. And that's because we know alcohol significantly disrupts our REM sleep cycle, as well as our deep sleep cycles. 2 components of sleep that are crucial for restoration, mental performance, physical performance, hormonal balance, mood regulation. Without alcohol, you should be experiencing your sleep cycles starting to normalize. Now, if you're tracking your sleep, you should see that black and white. If you're not, you're going to be relying a little bit more on subjectively how you're feeling. But what you should be feeling is more restful sleep when you wake up and less interruptions or less awakening during your actual sleep. And the benefit of having higher durations of both REM and hopefully deep sleep cycles is cognitive function. So things like memory improvement, focus, mood regulation, mood consistency, emotional regulation, all things that can be improved when you're getting more sleep. You'll feel more alert, more energetic, hopefully more productive during the day. Better sleep can dramatically change your life. And we're going to talk in a little bit in our bulletproofing section about how you can create healthy sleep hygiene to kind of take it to the next level. But something that you should be noticing is improved sleep, or at least changes in your sleep for the better. The next thing physically you may be feeling is decreased sugar cravings. So a huge benefit to cutting back alcohol, and something you should be physically feeling is less cravings towards products that are high in sugar. And then something else just worth noting that's happening, and it's a very, very beneficial thing, is your liver starts to process carbohydrates more effectively when your liver's not tied up processing the alcohol and the sugar associated with the alcohol that you've been feeding it up until the point of doing this alcohol cleanse. So with improved liver function, you're also going to have lower blood sugar levels potentially. And what that means chronically over time, if you're not mindful of your drinking and you're drinking in excess, alcohol can be leading towards or expediting your path towards some very serious health conditions like insulin resistance. You can become pre-diabetic, and God forbid, even type 2 diabetic. And we're going to link to a really good resource to help understand what's happening and why alcohol can and very well may be connected to something like insulin resistance and even pre-diabetes. But definitely want you to check that out, because it should be a wake-up call for you to put some constraints on your alcohol drinking. But the point here is, there's a lot happening in your body as you continue to feed it alcohol and the sugar that's involved with it. And if you remove alcohol, even for short periods of time, but hopefully in moderation for long periods of time, you could be preventing some pretty dire conditions that could develop. So with the empty calories you're not consuming with alcohol, with less sugar and whatnot, you definitely should be experiencing, at the very least, less cravings, both alcohol and sugar, and then hopefully even some weight loss, which could be great. And if you're following our tips from last week's episode and you either picked up a new exercise routine or intensified your existing routine, you could be well on your way to improving your physical performance and your confidence as well. And then this next topic, and we're also going to link to a resource on this one. An acronym is PAUSE, which stands for Post-Acute Withdrawal Symptoms. PAUSE is an acronym that helps you understand that there are a series of symptoms that you can and very likely are experiencing that could last 1 week, 2 weeks, even multiple months. And those symptoms are mood swings, anxiety, irritability, fatigue, and alcohol cravings. But the good news is they gradually lessen over time. And that's great. And it is essential to recognize that these symptoms are temporary. They will go away as long as you stay committed and you use some of the tools and the tips that can help alleviate them. It's just part of the healing process. And in that phase, your brain is just adjusting to the absence of alcohol and working actively to restore its natural balance. And again, lean into some of the tips and tools that we recommend, things like mindfulness, exercise, and just having a structured routine that can help manage stress and symptoms. And we'll get into some more kind of bulletproofing habits where you can get into some community if you feel like you need more accountability. And then this last piece, it's just something that, as humans, as we start to accomplish goals, we start to kind of sometimes just let up our effort or kind of pull back or take our foot off the pedal a little bit. You might feel accomplished as you get into week 2. You might think like, whoa, week 1 was easier than I thought. I've made it this far. Maybe I don't need to go 30 days. Maybe I can handle a drink. There's a holiday coming up. There's a wedding, whatever. And you start to kind of lose your resolve. And I just want to take a second to say that's natural, but also to just double down and encourage you to stay the course. Go for 30 days. It's a goal, and I can't tell you how satisfying it is at the end of that 30 days, whether you continue to refrain from alcohol or if you just kind of slowly reintroduce it back into your social life. It's just such an accomplishment, and also, a feather in your cap to show that you can do it. So Just wanted to call out that what you might be feeling is a little bit less motivated than how you felt, let's just say right before you started day one. Stay focused on your long-term health and your short-term goals. You will not regret it. Hey everybody, sorry to interrupt this episode. It's your host, Jesse Carrajat, and I've got a quick favor to ask. If you're enjoying this episode, would you please consider subscribing to the show and leaving a rating and review? That simple act goes such a long way to help us grow the show, reach more people, and make a positive impact in their lives. So thank you for considering, and now back to the show. So those are some of the physical and emotional changes that you may be experiencing. Again, sleep quality should be improving, decreased sugar cravings, and even potential weight loss could be huge benefits you might be experiencing. And just continued symptoms in that pause category. Again, post-acute withdrawal symptoms, things like mood swings, anxiety, irritability, fatigue, and whatnot. And again, check out the links in the show notes to dive deeper. And now let's get to the next section, which is the bulletproofing habits, tips, and tools, things you can continue to lean into and incorporate to stay the course for 30 days and potentially even longer. And the first one is massive: nutrition and hydration. Last week, we recommended exercise, again, starting exercise or intensifying a little bit just to give some added complexity and challenge. Now we're going to talk about nutrition and hydration. Good nutrition and proper hydration are vital during this period. So first, focus on a balanced diet that is rich in fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains, whole foods in general, right? Things that aren't in boxes. A lot of people say circle the perimeter of your favorite grocery store and only shop there because the interior aisles are the things that have what's called processed foods. Look, there's so many different nutritional lifestyles you could adopt. You have your Mediterranean, you have your keto friendly, all those different things. Bottom line is just focus on whole foods and have it well balanced, right? You don't want too many carbohydrates and not enough protein. You don't want too much protein and say not enough vegetables where you're getting all your micronutrients and not enough carbohydrates for energy, right? So I'm not going to sit here and recommend a particular nutritional lifestyle other than to say focus on well balanced, not too many calories, and then make sure they're whole foods as best as you can, okay? Because when you're detoxing potentially from alcohol or pulling away from it, you want as stable an environment in your body nutritionally as you possibly can to help just kind of decrease things like mood swings. And when you have an alcohol craving, you're much less likely to kind of cave into it, okay? So focus on well-balanced nutrition, and then on the hydration part of it, staying hydrated, drinking water, things that don't have a lot of sugar, but just drink so much water because you're flushing out toxins and you're supporting your overall health. I read a statistic the other day about what percentage of Americans are probably dehydrated every day and don't even know it. And that's just from their natural kind of like pace of life, maybe the caffeine they're drinking that could be, dehydrating them a little bit. Alcohol certainly dehydrates you, but just focus on drinking. Drink water, drink a lot of it, set a goal. Doesn't matter to me if it's a gallon, 3/4 of a gallon, half gallon, whatever, but track your drinking and be very intentional throughout the day to be drinking as much water as you can, especially as you're pulling away from alcohol. Balanced foods, hydration. Next, let's talk about sleep hygiene, okay? So mentioned earlier in this very episode that you should be experiencing better sleep just by removing alcohol, but let's kind of take it to the next level. So here's some best practices to think about. So first, a regular sleep schedule is huge. Our bodies have a powerful thing called a circadian rhythm. If we train our body and we have a regular sleep schedule, it's going to fall asleep faster, sleep deeper, and wake up much more refreshed and energized. So try your best to go to bed around the same time and wake up around the same time if possible. Next, create a calming bedtime routine as you approach sleep. So I highly, highly recommend turning off all of your digital devices, your cell phones. Stop watching TV, don't stream, don't bring your cell phone to bed. Just remove those distractions, remove those lights, remove those things from your environment as you start to get closer to bedtime. really consider the proper temperature in your room. There's a lot of research that says colder is better in terms of deep sleep. I'm not saying make it an ice box, but maybe if your normal is 72 degrees, maybe consider 69 or 68 degrees. I won't go into that much specificity, but do be mindful of the temperature in your room or wherever you sleep. The other thing is lighting. Just like colder is better, darker is better. So if you currently, go to sleep with a light on in the bathroom or a light somewhere in the room, consider maybe dimming or turning off lights so that you have a calming environment. And hopefully between creating space from any stimulus, like checking emails, watching, streaming, Instagram, things like that, decreasing the temperature in your room, decreasing the lights, you'll be sending your body and your mind cues that it's time for bed. And if you do that repeatedly and establish good routine and healthy habits, you're going to fall asleep faster and have better quality sleep. So try your best to adopt all of those best practices around sleep hygiene. And this next and last bulletproofing habit, or suggestion, should I say, is going to have to do with group support. And I'll say it right now. Jumping into a group of some kind that is specifically and intentionally designed to help people with alcohol consumption is not for everybody. And it may not be needed by everybody, maybe is a different way to put it. And however, can be incredibly powerful. All right. Now, there is some stigma around what it means to get into a quote unquote recovery group. Right. And I get that. I think a lot of us might feel, hey, like, I don't need a group, that I can do this on my own. It's a failure to need a group. And it's just not true. But something I've learned is that there's so many options out there that I had no idea existed. So bottom line here for this episode is, if you're open to it and you think there could be some benefit to jumping into a group, if anything, just to learn more knowledge and go deeper on some of the things we're discussing here, but maybe even more importantly, if you're kind of wavering, you feel on the ropes, or you feel like it's hard or it's harder than you thought to cut back alcohol, maybe it's time, at least temporarily, to jump into a group. And that can look like many different things. So, as you go into kind of week 2 of the journey, wherever you are, I just suggest, if anything, consider it. And we'll link to a couple different types of groups that you might consider, but I'm just going to touch on 3 here in this episode that are different. They're very different, actually, philosophically, and the frameworks of them. So the first one, it's the most common, so I'm just going to say it, and I'm not going to dwell on it because most people know what it is, but Alcoholics Anonymous. It's ubiquitous. There's thousands and thousands of groups every single day, both in person and virtually. It's a traditional kind of 12-step program, but depending on your moderator, it's going to different. And a disclosure here is I have never went through an AA group myself. I think I've been to one meeting on accident. That's a longer, humorous story I've shared previously on this show. But I do know a lot of people personally who I love and trust very much, who are huge advocates for the program. So therefore, I know that it worked for some people. So you can just Google AA. You'll find a website. There's meetings all the time. You can dip your toe in the water, start virtual, and go from there. I just will caution that the Alcoholics Anonymous kind of framework is rigid in certain kind of aspects of their program, where the term alcoholic is something that you have to kind of accept and believe in, for lack of better terminology from me. So AA is one option. Another one, which is less known, it's science-based and very much supported by the medical community. It's called Smart Recovery. Smart, S-M-A-R-T, Smart Recovery. You can Google it and find virtual meetings just like AA. But this uses a scientific approach and focuses on self-empowerment and cognitive behavioral techniques. So things you would typically run into if you actually saw a counselor or an addictions counselor or someone like that. But key here is it's secular. There's no spiritual component to Smart Recovery. It's science-based and is supported by literature and most of the therapists and physicians and clinicians that are out there in the world of recovery. So Smart Recovery, strongly suggest that. And as a disclosure, our Ultimate Fitness community that I mentioned in the intro to the show. We actually have within our community a link to a Smart Recovery meeting every single Sunday for our group members to kind of go in there, and you can do it alongside some Ultimate Fitness community members and just see what that's all about. So again, AA, Smart Recovery, and then one that is absolutely less known, but absolutely powerful. It's called Refuge Recovery. Now, Refuge Recovery is more of the Eastern belief set, or Eastern spiritualities, Buddhist to be exact. It's a mindfulness-based recovery program that's grounded in Buddhist principles. Again, that's Refuge Recovery. We will link to it. But similar to the other two programs, virtual meetups, you get in there and you can talk, and you're sharing stories, and always kind of grounded towards and rooted in, again, more Eastern principles. I hear great things about Refuge Recovery. I've never been to a meeting myself. So those are the three if you're considering a group. So again, on the bulletproofing part of things, nutrition and hydration, absolutely focus on those two areas to fortify yourself as you go through this 30-day alcohol-free journey. Sleep hygiene, try your best to adopt some of the practices that we mentioned, things like lighting, temperature, predictability, routine, minimizing technology, what have you. And then if you think it would benefit you, or at the very least, if you're curious, consider jumping into a group. And I just gave 3 different options, but there are many more out there. So that's it for week 2 of the 30-day alcohol-free blueprint. I mentioned in our kickoff episode, we try to keep these episodes around 25 minutes so you can absorb the information, learn from it, and move on with your life and hopefully stay the course. Remember, each step you take brings you closer to a healthier, happier life. So stay committed, stay strong. Make sure to join us next week for part 3, which is going to focus on days 15 through 21. So until next time, I'm Jesse Carrajat. Thank you so much for being here and for showing up for yourself today. Have a great week. Live deep. All right, everybody, that's the show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sober Strength podcast and spending some time with us today. We've got a favor to ask. If you enjoyed the show, would you please consider subscribing to the show and even leaving a rating and review? That simple act drastically helps us reach more people in our mission to help them live better, longer, healthier lives. You can also follow us if you'd like on Instagram and YouTube for regular tips and motivation around mental health, addiction, and so much more. Know that your support fuels our brand and is greatly appreciated. So until next time, stay strong and live deep.